Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith, joined today by John Budion, filmmaker, director. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. So, brand new film, Rockaway. Checked it out last night. It was fascinating on a number of different levels, and I'm sure really interesting for you because it's your life on the screen, and it was a couple years in the making. So, how cool is it to see it finally all done and rolling out this week?
It's been really, really exciting and humbling. I just wrote a film about my brother and I growing up on Long Island in '94 and the lifelong friends we made. And those same friends came together to help finance it. I mean, we don't even have a production company.
Wow.
And we just made a film, and it's getting a theatrical release. It's getting a worldwide streaming release. And we're just all really excited. Yeah. Yeah,
you should be. So how do you go from passion project, story of your life, to worldwide release? Take me through that.
It's been a journey. I started writing the film in 2014, and I went to NYU, but I didn't study film. And I just started writing what I know, which is the first thing you write. And when I finished the script, I said, this is amazing, everyone's gonna love this. And then I had professionals in the industry read it, and I said, this is garbage, I should learn how to write. So I bought every book on screenwriting, and very self-taught, but I had a lot of support around me, and I always have been lucky in that sense. And I got the script to my good friend Corey Thompson, who's a talent manager. He said, I love it, let's get it to a casting director. Got it to Billy Hopkins and Ashley Ingram, who cast Good Will Hunting, Mudbound, a lot of big films, Lee Daniels The Butler. He loved it, and we started putting out casting calls in 2016. And as you build these pieces, it helped bring in the financing, because you can say, hey, we've got this great casting director. Oh, we linked up this great actor. Okay, they're on board, and everyone gets excited. You get a little bit of money here and there, and next thing you know, you're making a film.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we were talking before off camera, East Rockaway is a very special place, not only for the connections in your life, but just the small town feel. So for people who haven't checked it out, haven't been there, just give me a little description of what it was like growing up there.
So the village of East Rockaway is actually sandwiched between like 5 other towns. You've got Hewlett, Oceanside, Rockville Center, Limbrook, everything, and it's a mile by a mile big. So very old feel. You've got canals, you've got these old roads, but very connected. Everybody knows each other. So filming there is also, was great because it's where I met everybody and where we came of age, and that's where they meet in the story. But also just being there during filming, I think, helped open up my emotions to infuse that into the film, because I was back in the town where all this really happened. We were filming on the roads where these dialogues and everything I wrote that actually happened, but seeing the actors do it, I think was really something special for myself, and I think for the village as well.
Yeah, definitely. And the kids that you have in the film are fantastic, and I think they did a great job in telling that story. And you've worked with kids before, but what was this experience like in terms of telling your story and doing it through young kids like this?
Well, again, they're also seasoned. They all are on hit TV shows and Oscar-nominated films. So bringing them together, one of the biggest things that I decided to do was that we put them in a hotel in Limbrook, which is right outside, 500 yards from East Rockaway. And I think in doing that, the idea was that they were going to bond, get into trouble, do all the things I wanted them to do that don't involve a smartphone. And they did all those things, and it really showed up on the lens. And these, 6 young men are such good friends to this day, and hang out and speak weekly. That's been very rewarding. So I think that also helped show and transition onto the lens in front of the camera.
No, you can definitely see that in the movie.
Thank you.
And I think the nostalgia factor also, because, whether it's a movie like mid-90s or just, going back in time with certain things, there's a romanticism about that time period.
Yeah.
And especially as Knicks fans in 1994, we like to romanticize those times as well. So I think it kind of hits on a bunch of different things, and I'm sure it was cool for you to kind of relive those times as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I was that young boy in the film. I loved John Starks,
That's
a hardworking guy who, kind of like our film, he wasn't drafted. He had to fight his way into the league, and then when he showed up and arrived, people knew his name. I mean, I think Michael Jordan was quoted as saying, I didn't know who John Starks was before I played that game, I know who he is now. And I feel like that's kind of like our film as well. We've gone the long road to get out there, and I think people are really going to enjoy it and be like, hey, where did this come from? And again, because we don't have a production company, just lifelong friends who made a film.
Yeah, I think once people see the name, hear the story, you're in it for one thing. That's kind of the way I started with it, and then you're in this really incredible emotional ride, especially with the story of you and your brother. So Just talk about your brother, because he seemed like an unbelievable big brother, and just somebody that always looked out for you. So what do you remember the most about him?
I mean, he's my mentor. He's amazing. I always looked up to him, and we're a lot closer in age than is reflected in the film.
So what was the difference in age?
We're 14 months apart.
Okay.
And so I wanted a little more discrepancy of the age gap for the film to show that young John needed a little more protection. But he's always inspired me with he was, I went to college, he went to the military. Mm-hmm. He was Air Force Special Forces. He was in there when 9/11 happened. We thought he was going to be going out to Afghanistan. Somehow he gets out. He then was NYPD, FDNY. I don't want to go more into it because it might reveal a little bit of the story and things that happened or didn't happen. But yeah, I very much look up to him, and he's my inspiration for everything I do.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so obviously there's a ton of emotion in this film, and dealing with young kids emitting this emotion, how difficult was it to coach them in some of these later scenes which people will see where things are starting to go one way and then really take a right turn into a whole different storyline there?
Well, again, having the seasoned guys, Kedrick Salati, 70-something episodes on The Americans, Tanner Flood, The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Colin Critchley, who, he's got 3 or 4 films that are out right now, James DiGiacomo from the Oscar film Brooklyn, and then this other guy, Harrison Whitmire, who's kind of someone I found in casting that I think is just raw and amazing. They were all there to mentor young Maxwell, who was 7, who plays me in the film.
Yeah, he was great.
And I'll give you 2 examples of how they really, one example where Colin was phenomenal. Colin said to me, we were shooting an emotional scene, which is after a big event, which you saw the film,
right.
And Colin said, do you think we can, I got an idea, do you think we can start with the close-ups in this scene? He said, we're all getting worked up and tears and everything. I said, let me think about that. I walked away and I came back and said, guys, I said, a really good idea. I think we should start with the close-ups here. But, from his experience, this made sense to him. And after he said it, I was like, yeah, well, that makes so much sense. And then I wasn't quite getting out of Maxwell a really important scene. And again, this was probably 2-3 weeks into filming. We had all gotten very close. And his mom was sitting next to me in Video Village, and I said to her, I said, I know what I want to say to him. And I ran it by her. And she goes, yeah, I'm okay with that. And I walked over to Max, and we've got all of the elements of the scene going. So there's a lot of extras. Yeah. There's the police, and as you know, the other stuff going on. And I said, Max, I said, are you having a good time staying in the hotel with all the other boys? He said, yeah, I'm really having a good time. I said, well, if you can't nail this scene, I'm going to have to get your stuff out of the hotel, and I know a ton of visual effects, as you know. I'm going to replace your face in every scene.
Wow.
And I was getting emotional telling him this because I knew I was just lying to him. And I said, and we're just going to have to replace you if you can't do this. And he started getting really upset. And I said, and I started getting really upset. So I started tearing up. He started tearing up. I said, roll the camera. And I ran away.
Wow.
And we got the scene. And then after, all the boys wanted to know how I got him to get that emotion out. And they wanted to learn from it. I said, do me a favor. I said, let's talk about that next week. When you're back at the hotel tonight, just let him know how proud you are of him. And they did, and they all they came together, and he got over it and understood why I did that. I think he sent me a video the next day, our day off. He was on a boat, and he's like, I'm working and tirelessly. He's like, oh yeah, I understand why you did that, and I'm having a great weekend.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
You.
That's an amazing story there, just in terms of getting the best out of your talent and knowing which buttons to push, which is one thing, but doing it with a 7-year-old kid, that's a whole different experience, and I'll give you a ton of credit for being able to pull that out there.
Thank you.
That's really interesting. So, New York guy, you got the film rolling out here in the city this week at the Village Cinema. How cool is that going to be for you?
It's really amazing, because again, I went to NYU, so it's a theater that's right in that area. And I live right near there, just to see Rockaway on the marquee outside with films that are fighting for Oscar awards, which is kind of amazing. It's good company to be in. We're not going to be there, but it's just again on that marquee to see that, hey, we fought and got it there, and with no representation, no production company, just friends made a film.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about your career. You're not studying film at NYU. You're at a place where film is a big thing. How do you go from that to, your career in visual effects and all the different films and stuff you've worked on?
So when I was 17, I moved to New York to go to NYU. And I'd gotten an internship at a post-production company called Charlex. So I started there, and I was getting coffees and doing night work and stuff like that, but I was so interested in everything that was happening there. You know, that company was started by Charlie and Alex, and their big thing they did back then was the Cars video, You Might Think.
Okay.
So that opened up a huge, huge company and everything going for them, and I'm immersed in all of this. And I'm getting coffees, but at night, without telling anybody, I'm learning visual effects. I'm learning a high-end software called Flame, which at the time was a multi-million-dollar setup, and only a few places had it in the city. And if you had one, it was known you had one. It's kind of a visual effects beast. And so I'm learning this, I'm not sleeping, I'm taking my classes, I'm doing my coffee runs, my paperwork, and then staying through the night and going to class. And a job came in for the NBA Finals for Allen Iverson, for I believe it was
Sixers-Lakers.
Sixers-Lakers series. And the owner of the company is like, well, they wanted it turned around for the next night for the game, for like game 3.
Yeah.
And I'm there holding like the coffee, and I'm like, I could do it. Like, it doesn't sound that hard. And he's like, who are you again? And so I worked with one other senior artist and helped turn around this commercial in like 12 hours.
Wow.
And it aired the next day.
Wow.
And I was like 17 or 18 years old.
That's incredible.
And I was just, I never got another coffee after that. So I was just then on the machine doing the work, and started again just learning as much as I could. And then being on hands-on, understanding how things you're filming are going to work together gives you an opportunity to be on set visual effects supervising. So then you're working with directors to help them achieve their vision of the shots, but they're not quite sure. They know they have a clear vision of what they want, but they're not sure how the elements are going to piece together. So you're there to help them piece together. So in a way, you're in this aspect, you're directing directors for these particular shots. And so it got me a lot of on-set experience. And I'm still at NYU, and you know, I was taking classes. I was in the Gallatin School where you can form your own major and take classes at any of their 7 schools. So I'm dabbling in all different elements of film and everything, but not really with a focus on anything except the visual effects that I was doing. I graduated, and then I kept visual effects supervising, and I got linked up with on a Ruby Tuesday job out in Long Island, and I realized the director and I were the same age. We graduated at NYU together. The DP and I were the same age. We graduated at NYU together. DP actually shot Rockaway. His name is Matthew Santo.
Nice.
The director that I was working with, I was visual effects supervising the shoot for Ruby Tuesday. The director I was working with is John Watts, who just did Spider-Man Homecoming, who directed and wrote on that. And we just started working together. We'd always just pull each other in on projects. You know, I flew out to LA, worked on a music video with John. Matt shot John's first feature called Clown. Matt shot all my stuff that I've ever worked on. And he made me realize, John Watts made me realize that I could be directing my own stuff too, and I should be. And he gave me the confidence to do that. I'm like, hey, this guy's doing it. And super nice guy too, super talented as the world has seen now. So I started shooting my own spec commercials, and Matt would help me with that, and of course I could do my own visual effects on it. Right. And then I got an opportunity to do the E-Trade Talking Baby commercials. So I pitched a way to make the babies speak more realistically, and to direct these Super Bowl commercials, and not something I was going to say no to.
No, definitely not.
And then I thought that would open up my reel after, but all I was getting offered were, you know, Huggies and Pampers commercials, and I'm like,
you're kind of pigeonholed at first, yeah.
I'm like, what about all the other stuff involved in making these?
What about those feature films? Yeah, can we talk about that? And
then I did the World Cup spots for McDonald's and DreamWorks for the Happy Meal campaign with How to Train Your Dragon 2 and Mr. Peabody and Sherman. And that was interesting too, because I worked with DreamWorks animation team, and they weren't sure if my approach was going to work, putting a live action young boy on Toothless the Dragon, like skydiving and chasing his Happy Meal. And I showed them a test, and then they just never asked another question. Wow. Yeah, it was really cool. It was the first time that DreamWorks had ever released their original animations also to an outside vendor for finishing. So I directed the live action, and then I ingested all of their animations to do the final finishing on that. Again, I thought that would help me get an opportunity to do a feature film, but it didn't. So I heard that the best way to get your own feature was to start writing your own, so that's what I did.
Yeah, and it's a long burn in that story. And I think it's interesting because the industry itself seems like it's changed a lot because, you know, for the big feature films, there's going to be that money. You know, there's going to be those passion projects, but some films can kind of get lost in the shuffle. So what are some of the biggest differences you sense from being that 17-year-old kid just starting out to where you are now in terms of the whole industry?
Well, I mean, what's good and bad about the industry is that anyone can make a film right now, but it doesn't mean everyone should be making a film. They should make a film when they're ready. Right. You know, I wanted to make a film for the longest time, and I don't think I was quite ready until I absorbed and learned enough. I was really lucky in a random situation. I ended up on the set of Boardwalk Empire. I got to shadow for a day Tim Van Patten, who's one of their executive producers, Long Island guy, great director, and he's coordinating this huge scene, he's blocking it out, and I said to Tim, I said, you know, how do you get people to trust you with the money and the budgets to do these things? And what he said to me has really stuck a long time with me, and I try to remind myself of this in anything I create. He said, at the end of the day, lights do what they do, grips, gaffers do what they do, everyone does what they do, and everyone has a camera in their pocket now. So he's like, but if you can tell a story, and a story at the right pace, he's like, that's what will separate you. So I always knew I could tell a story, and Rockaway is my brother and I's story, and I feel like I told it at the right pace, you know? Yeah. Like I could have the most amazing weekend ever, but if it takes me 3 hours to tell you that story, like nobody cares.
Nobody's waiting around.
Yeah, nobody's waiting around. So that really stuck with me with what Tim said. So what is the biggest difference now is, you know, if you made a film even like, you know, back in early 2000s, if you look at, you know, the success of like Clerks or Brothers McMullen, you know, you made a film. Like it's gonna get a chance to get out there. Now you can make a film, and everybody can make a film, and it's flooded in the market, and it's hard to get people to watch something unless there is, you know, that big carrot or something, like a big name in there. I mean, the biggest thing with my film is I mean, we've done a year of festivals and won Best Picture at almost every festival, and sold out all over the country. It's been amazing to see these strangers love like our story. The biggest response I was getting is, you know, coming-of-age films are hard without a big name in there. You know, you mentioned the mid-'90s, which is a great film. I loved it a lot. You know, but Jonah Hill picks up the phone, he gets Scorsese. I pick up the phone, I get my buddy Dom, who's like, yo, is Vin Diesel available to play me? And I'm like, yeah, Vin's not available.
Not exactly, Dom.
He's like, what about that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? I'm like, nah, he's not available either.
Nah, we're gonna go for somebody you haven't heard of, probably.
Meanwhile, Scorsese's like, all right, you should block this out, Jonah. You know?
No, but that's a great point, just in terms of just differences in career and just the process that goes into building something like that.
Absolutely.
And also the marketing too, because you can start winning at these festivals, but you need strong marketing, you need that figurehead at the top, and then you need it to be a great story, which is the benefit of what you guys have too. So
thank you.
All those things coming together, and timing as well. Yeah. It feels like 2019 is just the perfect storm for all those things for you guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's helped also with, you know, Kedrick was our lead, was just out at the Golden Globes. The Americans won. So you know, all these things, they help to get more exposure, and I think just getting the film in front of people and getting them watching it, I think the film will do the rest.
Definitely. Yeah. So when people check the film out, you guys tell a great story, but what do you want people to walk away thinking once they see it?
I think that I want people to, you know, really cherish those friendships, and the friendships outside of social media. You know, I mean, these guys that have been supporting me for my entire life and career, even before I was deserving of their support, we're still the closest of friends. And I think that's important. You know, everyone needs a support system. And it really just pushing each other to get out there and just achieve the things you want to achieve, and also to just go for it. I mean, you know, again, we're just 6 guys from a small town in Long Island that made a film, you know?
There you have it. And it's a great film, too. Check out Rockaway. Where can people check it out?
They can check it out. We're in theaters on starting Friday at the Village East Cinema. We'll be there for a week, 4 times a day. And then we are streaming worldwide on Amazon, iTunes, Vudu, a bunch of other places. And you can always check us out at rockawaythefilm.com or our social media handles.
Awesome. John, thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Pleasure meeting you. We'll see you next time here on The Sit Down.